So yeah, what's happening? I just thought we'd do a video on Rochelle Stille. Try and say that 3 times dead quick. Yeah, she's an actress. Most horror fans won't be familiar with, but she made a name for herself starring in B-movies and exploitation films. She was born in Philadelphia but moved to Hollywood with high hopes of success, but unfortunately she'd only end up being in a handful of low-budget films that we'll just go through here dead quick. So first of all, she was an uncredited girl at a drive-in theatre in Jackie Kong's The Being, but it'd only be a year later in 1982 when she'd starred as Valerie Bates in the Slumber Party Massacre, and then again in 1998 she'd appeared again alongside other screen queens in Sorority babes at Slime's bowl-a-rama, where she played Babs Peterson. Her other screen credits include Winner Take All 1986 and Vampire Nights 1987, but a final performance would be in the American Ninja 4 The Annihilation in 1991. On television she also played a coat check girl in 1990 for Jake the Fat Man in the episode entitled God Bless the Child. Little is known regarding Robin Steele's life. At the time of her death, the Screen Actors Guild still listed her as a member, but even her agent had no idea where she even lived. This was in the mid-90s and she'd fallen out of contact with most of her co-stars. Brinky Stevens recalls running into her, but other than that, nothing. By then, Robin was also mother to 2 twins, Joshua and Justin. So yeah, let's just take it back to Slumber Party Massacre. So Val began as the brunette, the new girl, and 6 billed in Amy Holden Jones's Slumber Party Massacre. The film would be mostly shot on location in and around Venice, California. The story revolves around Trish, an 18-year-old high school senior who decides to throw a slumber party since her parents are away. The neighbour, Mr. David Contant, is given the job of checking in on the girls. She awakes and gets dressed shortly before going to school. Meanwhile, Russ Thorne, an escaped mass murderer, kills a telephone repair woman and steals a van. Trish meets up with her friends Kim and Jackie and Diane, also deciding to invite Val. Given the reluctance of her friends, Val was the persona non grata who gets outcast by the group as she overheard them basically talking shit about her in the locker. From this, deciding to not attend, inadvertently saving herself from the immediate carnage. The film has a few writing credits, but it was originally wrote by Rita Mae Brown as a parody of the slasher genre, but it would transition into more of a conventional horror film instead. As a result, it contains probably more humour on purpose and accidental. The Slumber Party Massacre grossed $3.6 million at the box office on a budget of $220,000, helped in large part because of Roger Corman, obviously known as the man that discovered Jack Nicholson, but at this time in the 80s he'd go by such monikers as the Pope of pop cinema, the spiritual godfather in New Hollywood, and the king of cult. So as you can imagine, it was probably his idea to have so much nudity. I'm guessing he also wanted them to dress in as little as possible. Even still, Amy Jones was able to slip some subtle themes of feminism. I'd say that's probably large part to it was almost all female cast and crew. Robin's co-stars in the film described it as fun and determined for stardom, not unusual for a group of 20-somethings fresh out to Hollywood. By the time of the next feature, as Party Girl number 3 in Winner Takes All, she was a blonde who went by the name of Robin Rochelle. While being a mostly forgettable role, it was closely followed by another in the Dan Peterson written and directed comedy Vampire Nights. However, then came a second big break as she was third billed as cruel Babs Peterson in the cult classic Sorority babes in Slime's bowl-a-rama, returning with Becky Stevens, her co-star from Slumber Party Massacre, as well as Michelle Bauer. The story is loosely based on the classic story The Monkey's Paw by H.H. Jacobs, which I'm sure you've probably heard of, but I'll do a little refresher. Mr. and Mrs. White and their grown son Herbert are visited by Sergeant Major Morris, a friend who served in the British Army in India. During the dinner, he introduces them into a muffled monkey's paw. He explains how it had an old spell placed on the paw so that it would grant 3 wishes, only with hellish consequences as punishment for tampering with fate. Morris, having had horrible experience using the paw, throws it onto the fire, but where a sceptical Mr. White retrieves it. Before leaving, Morris warns Mr. White what might happen should you use the paw. Mr. White hesitates at first, believing that he already has everything that he'd want and ever need, but at Herbert's suggestion, he flippantly wishes for $200, which will enable him to pay his final mortgage payment. When he makes his wish, Mr. White suddenly drops the paw in surprise, claiming that it moved and twisted like a snake, and the following day, Herbert leaves for work. That night, an employee arrives at the White's home, telling them that Herbert was killed in a terrible machine accident, that his body was mutilated. The company denies any responsibility for the incident, but declares its intention to make goodwill with a payment to the bereaved family. When discussing, the couple asks what the sum will be. They are told £200. A week after the funeral, Miss White, mad with grief, insists that her husband used the monkey paw to bring Herbert's life back. Reluctantly he does though, despite great unease at the thought of summoning his own son's mutilated, decomposing corpse. Later that night there's a knock at the door. As Miss White fumbles at the locks in a desperate attempt to open the door, Mr. White becomes terrified and fears about what the thing outside must be, and how it's not his son. He makes a third and final wish. The knock stops, Mrs. White opens the door, and no one's there. So yeah, I'm sure you've seen this story before, the H.H. Jacobs story. It's a very, very famous story. If you have seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this did get adapted in the episode Forever, where Dawn tries to bring Joyce back from the dead with the help of Spike, only for them to undo it when Joyce reaches the door, because in much the same way they fear what she might have become. And Buffy herself even mirrors this, in the fact that she was brought back from the dead, but she was never quite the same. It like changed her completely. So yeah, you will see this story like echoed in a lot of media. Sorority Babes in Slimeball's Bowl-a-rama takes more of a surrealist approach at the story, opening with a group of boys, most notably Hal Halvins, spying on a group of sorority girls. Babs, aka Robin Steele, catches them, only deciding to send them out to help the girls on the initiation by breaking into Slimeball's Bowl-a-rama to steal a trophy. From there the film gets quite weird, even implementing some quite good creature effects that still hold up. But for me, where the film really gets good and starts to pick up is with the introduction of Spider, played by the ever-alluring Leanna Quigley, who was one of the coolest characters in just any exploitation, full stop. She just has that line delivery where you can't quite tell if she's being serious or not. And then they meet up with her as she's crowbar in hand, trying and succeeding in burglarising the mall, in which the bowl-a-rama is obviously located. So with her help, they break into the bowl-a-rama and seize the trophy, and then they open it and it reveals a genie of sorts, and then that's where we go from there. So yeah, out of all of the films, they're the two that I'd probably say going Bowl-a-rama and Slumber Party Massacre really do hold up. So yeah, they're the two that I'd say probably go to out of a filmography that hold up quite well. About Robin's work on Sorority Babes, Brinky Stevens is quoted as saying when discussing the injuries on set, Lena got badly battered too when a larger fighting partner, Robin, frequently drank too much vodka and lost her restraint. In another quote discussing the co-stars, Miss Stevens also said, "I've always liked Robin, she seems so sophisticated and worldly than other girls her age. Tall, blonde and gorgeous, she dated a major Las Vegas star and dared to sneak vodka onto the set. She was both sweet and tough. I was shocked to hear of her disillusionment with Hollywood and ultimate suicide. What a waste of a promising life. So, as can be inferred, the drinking seems to have been a problem and theorised by many sources as a contributing factor to her ultimate suicide." So yeah, just a bit of a sad story really. I just thought it'd be nice to go over and just take a look back at some of the films. I think she definitely, her performance carried a lot of films that she was in, and she was very underappreciated. Just never really got a big break as a leading lady, and probably should have. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it there. If there's anything else you want me to go over, any other exploitation films, I could talk about maybe Lady Snowblood or something a bit more, something else, you know what I mean? But yeah, just leave your recommendations in the comments. I'm game to talk about any film, to be honest, so yeah, that's about it. See you later.